Hey everybody, across the world there's a handful of towns that were drawn with mathematical precision. Star-shaped fortresses, flawless grids, and radial patterns so exact, they look like they should belong on another world. Here's 15 towns that were built in amazing geometric shapes. Number 15. Denmark's Utopian Garden. On the outskirts of Copenhagen, Denmark, is Brombuhevebro, commonly called the Garden City, which I'll refer to it now because that pronunciation is really hard. It's one of the most recognizable planned communities in Europe due to its layout. It was built in the 1960s. The project was designed to provide residents with affordable housing combined with private gardens, reflecting Denmark's emphasis on community living. The circular plots are arranged like spokes on a wheel, with each circle divided into pie-shaped lots where residents build small garden houses. At the center of each circle is a shared grassy area, creating a balance between privacy and communal space. The concept behind the Garden City stems from Denmark's garden allotment tradition, which dates back to the late 19th century. Industrialization brought a large number of workers into Copenhagen, which created the need for outdoor spaces where families could grow food and escape the crowded city. By the mid-20th century, Danish urban planners were experimenting with more structured designs that incorporated these allotment ideals. The Garden City was among the most ambitious of those experiments, using geometric design to maximize efficiency. Each of these circular gardens has around 24 to 26 plots, and each approximately 400 square meters in size. This uniform division ensures fairness in space allocation, and it maintains a cohesive appearance. The small houses built on the plots are seasonal, intended primarily for use between spring and autumn, rather than as a full-time residence. But from above, the Garden City is pretty striking. The circle stands out sharply against the otherwise rectangular suburban surroundings, and the uniformity of the layout is so distinctive it's become a frequent subject of satellite photography. It is often mistakenly believed to be a new utopian concept, but the design's roots lie firmly in Denmark's older traditions. Over the decades, it's remained remarkably consistent in its appearance. While the houses themselves vary in style and decoration, the structure has been preserved by municipal regulations. The Garden City demonstrates how geometric planning can serve a practical purpose while also producing a striking visual harmony. Far from being a purely aesthetic experiment, the design reflects a deep understanding of Danish culture, access to nature, equitable land distribution, and a strong sense of community. This circular form continues to inspire discussions on how small-scale urban planning can prioritize human needs while creating landscapes that are memorable. Number 14. Palmanova. Palmanova is located in northeastern Italy. It's one of the most famous examples of a perfectly geometric town. It was built in 1593 by the Republic of Venice. This town was designed as a 9-pointed star fortress, reflecting Renaissance military principles. Its layout exemplifies the idea of a star fort, or a design that combines beauty, symmetry, and defensive functionality. The Venetian government conceived it during a period of heightened military tension with the Ottoman Empire. The location was strategically chosen near Venice's eastern frontier. By constructing a fortified settlement from scratch here, the Venetians aimed to create a defensive bulwark and a model community. The plan was overseen by military architects who applied the latest theories of geometry and ballistics to ensure defense. The star-shaped walls are formed by 9 bastions connected by curtain walls and surrounded by a moat. This radial design allowed for defenders to cover all approaches with overlapping fields of fire, which eliminated the blind spots that earlier medieval walls often had. But beyond the military function, the geometric form served a symbolic purpose. It reflected Renaissance fascination with perfect forms and the belief that harmonious architecture could inspire civic virtue among its people. Inside the walls, the town's streets radiate from a central hexagonal piazza. The layout ensures that all main thoroughfares converge on this square. The uniformity of the street plan, 3 concentric rings divided by radial avenues, did provide efficient movement of troops, while also creating a visual pattern when viewed from above. Despite the elegant design, though, Palmanova initially struggled to attract people. The Venetian government offered incentives, including tax exemptions and land grants, but many peasants were reluctant to move into what was essentially a military outpost. Over time, though, the town grew and its strategic role persisted through conflicts, including the Napoleonic Wars and the Austrian Empire's control of the region. But today, Palmanova is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's part of the Venetian Works of Defense. The town's walls, gates, and central piazza have been carefully maintained. Modern development has largely respected the original plan. A view from above, it remains strikingly geometric, a 9-pointed star surrounded by a moat with perfectly straight streets radiating from the center. While it was originally built for war, its design today serves as a reminder of how Renaissance thinkers sought to merge science, art, and practical necessity into a single vision. Number 13. Naarden. Located about 30 kilometers east of Amsterdam, Naarden is one of the best preserved examples of a star-shaped fortified town in Europe. Originally established in the late Middle Ages, Naarden gained its distinctive geometric form in the 17th century, when it was rebuilt as part of the Dutch Republic's defensive network against Spain and later French forces. The layout here and the water defenses show the Dutch mastery of fortification design during the 80 Years' War and subsequent conflicts. The fortification forms a 6-pointed star surrounded by a double ring of canals and earth ramparts. Each point of the star houses a bastion, and the spaces between them are filled with water, creating a moat system that could flood during sieges. The use of this water as a defensive tool was a hallmark of Dutch military engineering, which capitalized on the country's flat, low-lying terrain. The result was a formidable fortress that combined geometric precision with practical defense. The internal layout is equally methodical. Streets radiate outward from a central market square, with additional concentric rings providing efficient circulation and easy access to defensive positions. This radial plan minimized any confusion during an attack, and it allowed soldiers to be deployed rapidly where needed. The town's gates, like the Utrecht Gate and the Amsterdam Gate, were aligned carefully with the main axes, emphasizing order and symmetry. Now, historically, Naarden played a role in protecting the approaches to Amsterdam and the surrounding provinces. It saw multiple occupations and battles, including during the Franco-Dutch War in the 1670s and later under Napoleonic control. But despite its military significance, it also developed as a thriving market town, known for its textile production and trade. By the 19th century, advances in artillery rendered star forts like this one obsolete, but the fortifications remained largely intact. Unlike many similar fortresses that were demolished to make way for expansion, this one preserved its walls and canals, which are now protected as part of the Dutch Heritage Network. From an aerial view, the geometry is kind of striking. The interlocking points of the star, surrounded by blue water and green embankments, stand out against the landscape. The precision of this design, achieved centuries before modern surveying tools, continues to impress architects. Naarden has also become a popular tourist destination for history enthusiasts, particularly those interested in military architecture and the evolution of defensive strategies in early modern Europe. Number 12. Brasília. Brasília, the capital of Brazil. It's one of the most ambitious examples of planned urban design in the 20th century. Unlike older fortified towns, Brasília was conceived not for defense, but as a symbol of national unity. Built between 1956 and 1960 under the direction of then-President Kubitschek, the city was designed by urban planner Lucio Costa and architect Oscar Niemeyer. The layout forms a cross or an airplane shape when viewed from above, reflecting a geometric planning principle. The decision to construct Brasília arose from a desire to develop Brazil's interior and reduce the concentration of political power in coastal cities like Rio de Janeiro. The plan called for a completely new city built on an empty plateau, allowing Costa and Niemeyer to impose a modernist vision without the constraints of existing infrastructure. The design emphasized order, symmetry, and monumental scale in line with contemporary ideals of functionalism and progress. Brasília's overall plan resembles an airplane, with the fuselage representing a monumental axis, the central avenue lined with government buildings, including the National Congress, Presidential Palace, and Supreme Court. The wings house the city's residential blocks, each designed to be self-sufficient with schools, shops, and parks, and the city's divided into clearly defined zones for housing, commerce, and administration, connected by wide roads designed for traffic. Supporters celebrate the bold vision and the coherence of it, while critics argue that its rigid zoning and focus on car travel create challenges for pedestrians and social interactions. But despite the debates, the influence on urban planning is undeniable. In 1987, UNESCO designated the city a World Heritage Site, recognizing it as a masterpiece of modernist architecture and city planning. From above, the sweeping curves of the residential wings contrast with the straight lines of the monumental axis, and it forms a balanced yet dynamic composition. Key landmarks like Niemeyer's Cathedral, with its hyperbolic structure, and the Twin Towers of the National Congress reinforce the city's futuristic character. While it continues to face urban challenges including traffic congestion and housing inequality, it does remain one of the most significant experiments in 20th century city building. Its deliberate geometry distinguishes it from most other capitals, making it a living example of how modernist ideals were translated into larger-scale urban forms. Number 11. La Plata. La Plata, the capital of Buenos Aires province in Argentina, is one of the most notable examples of the perfectly geometric planned city in South America. It was founded in 1882, specifically to serve as the provincial capital after Buenos Aires city was federalized. The urban plan was designed by the Argentine architect Pedro Benoit, who applied precise geometric and symmetrical principles, creating a layout that still stands out today when viewed from above. The city's design is based on a square grid, overlaid with two diagonals that intersect at a central plaza, Plaza Moreno. This arrangement divides La Plata into 4 quadrants, each served by a network of smaller plazas and parks spaced at regular intervals. The use of diagonals was intended to shorten travel distances across the city and provide visual landmarks for orientation. Every 6 blocks or so, planners included green spaces, ensuring residents were always within walking distance of a public park. That was a forward-thinking feature for its time. The strict alignment of major avenues and diagonals ensures that key government buildings, cultural institutions, and public spaces will occupy prominent positions within the framework. The overall effect is functional and visually striking. It blends rational planning with monumental architecture. The construction of La Plata did coincide with Argentina's rapid economic growth in the late 19th century, that fueled by agricultural exports. The city was intended to symbolize modernization and progress, and its layout reflects the optimism of that period. Electric street lighting was installed soon after its founding, making La Plata one of the first cities in Latin America, and even the world, to adopt technology on a citywide scale. The geometric structure of the city has endured, with little alteration, even as the city's population has grown. The grid and diagonals remain legible, and many of the original parks and plazas are still in use. From the air, the design is unmistakable. A perfect square is punctuated by diagonal avenues that radiate towards the corners and converge on the central plaza. The symmetry is practical and symbolic. It represents a vision of order in an era of rapid urban expansion. Today, the city's not only an administrative center, but it's a university hub, home to the University of La Plata, which has produced numerous Nobel laureates. Number 10. Chandigarh. Chandigarh, it's a rare example of a mid-20th century city built entirely from scratch and guided by a single cohesive vision. Conceived after the partition of India in 1947, the city was planned to serve as the new capital for the Indian states of Punjab and Haryana. The design was entrusted to Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier, who applied modernist principles and strict organization to create what is widely regarded as one of the most important planned cities of the modern era. The master plan of Chandigarh is based on a grid system resembling a human body, with different zones serving as distinct functions. The head of the city contains the Capitol complex, home to the High Court, Secretariat, and Legislative Assembly, while the heart consists of the city's commercial center. The limbs represent residential and industrial areas. This anthropomorphic analogy guided the layout while ensuring separation of functions and efficient traffic flow. Pretty good. Chandigarh's residential areas are divided into self-contained sectors, each approximately 800 by 1,200 meters. They're bordered by major roads containing schools, parks, and shops, and this planning allows residents to access daily necessities within walking distance while minimizing through traffic in the residential zones. Buildings like the High Court and Legislative Assembly are celebrated for their qualities and innovative use of raw concrete, influencing architectural trends around the world. The Capitol complex is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's recognized for its significance in the history of modernist architecture. But Chandigarh's geometric clarity is really evident in the roads, famously described as 7 Vs, from fast highways V1 to pedestrian paths V7. This system ensures efficient circulation of people and vehicles while preserving calm within the neighborhoods. But from an aerial perspective, the layout is kinda striking in its regularity. The sectors form a perfect grid with organic growth patterns of older Indian cities. This planned structure has allowed Chandigarh to accommodate population growth without losing the functional coherence of it. While some critics argue that the city's scale can feel impersonal, it remains a landmark achievement in 20th century planning, and it's a model for post-colonial urban development. Number 9. Canberra. Canberra, the capital city of Australia. It's one of the most recognized examples of a planned city built with strict design principles. It was conceived in the early 20th century. Canberra was chosen as a compromise location between Sydney and Melbourne and was intended to symbolize national unity. The design competition for the city was won in 1912 by American architects Walter Burley Griffin and Marion Mahoney Griffin, whose vision emphasized symmetry, radial axes, and integration with the natural land. The city's plan is structured around 3 major axes, forming a triangle, the Parliamentary Triangle. This central framework connects the key government buildings, the Parliament House, Defense Headquarters, and City Hill, and the layout uses radiating avenues and concentric circles, which are aligned with significant topographical features like Lake Burley Griffin and the surrounding hills, including Mount Ainslie. The Griffins drew inspiration from the City Beautiful movement, which promoted monumental architecture, wide boulevards, and harmonious integration with nature. One of Canberra's defining features is the use of circles and hexagons. Roads are laid out in a radial and grid pattern and intersect at large roundabouts and create a visually distinctive pattern. The arrangement supports traffic flow by reducing congestion at those intersections, which was a forward-thinking design for that era. And at the heart of the city, Lake Burley Griffin serves as a scenic centerpiece and a flood control reservoir, demonstrating the planner's commitment to functionality. Construction of Canberra began in 1913, but progress was pretty slow due to World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II. The growth accelerated after World War II, particularly in the 50s when Parliament moved from Melbourne to Canberra. Throughout its development, efforts were made to maintain the original vision, even as modern infrastructure expansion was added. Today, Canberra remains a unique blend of planned geometry and natural beauty. The city is characterized by its wide boulevards, extensive green spaces, and deliberately low building heights, which preserve views of the surrounding hills and land. While its population is modest compared to other Australian capitals, Canberra houses the nation's key political and cultural institutions, including the Australian War Memorial, National Gallery, and High Court. From an aerial view, the central Parliamentary Triangle stands out. It's framed by the lake and connected to the broader city by radiating avenues. The design continues to influence urban planning discussions, particularly around how planned capitals can balance symbolic, functional, and environmental goals. Number 8. Jaipur. Jaipur, founded in 1727 by Maharaja Sawai Jai Singh II. It's one of the earliest planned cities in India and an example of geometric urban design rooted in traditional Indian principles. Located in the region of Rajasthan, Jaipur was conceived as the new capital of the princely state, replacing the hill fort of Amber. The city's layout features a strict grid plan based on Vatu Shastra, the ancient Indian system of architecture and planning. The plan divides Jaipur into 9 rectangular sectors, symbolizing the 9 divisions of the Hindu cosmological universe. Streets intersect at right angles, forming a grid pattern with avenues and uniform blocks. The central axis leads to the city palace, which served as the royal residence, while other major landmarks, including the Hawa Mahal, the Palace of the Wind, and the Jantar Mantar Observatory, are strategically aligned within the grid. That arrangement ensures functionality and symbolic significance, which reflects Jaipur's dual role as a practical capital and a spiritual center. One of the most distinctive features is the massive fortified walls, which enclose the city in a roughly rectangular shape with 7 gates providing access. The walls, combined with the grid layout, offer both defense and an order during a period of frequent conflict. Within the walls, markets and residential areas were carefully planned to accommodate different trades and communities, and each assigned to a specific street or square to facilitate commerce and social organization. Jaipur is famously known as the Pink City, a nickname it earned when its buildings were painted terracotta pink in 1876 to welcome the Prince of Wales. This uniform color scheme enhances the city's coherence, especially when viewed from above, where the grid of pink streets and squares is easily discernible. The city's planning was pretty advanced for its time. Streets were unusually wide to accommodate processions and markets, drainage systems were integrated into the design, and public squares were evenly spaced. In 2019, Jaipur's historic center was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, recognized for its outstanding example of an 18th century planned city that fused Indian architecture with innovative town planning. From above, its regular grid and enclosed walls are immediately visible, marking it as distinct among older Indian cities that developed organically. Moving on to number 7, Valletta. Valletta is the capital of Malta. It's one of the most meticulously planned fortified cities of the 16th century. It was constructed by the Order of St. John after the Great Siege of Malta in 1565. The city was designed to be both defensible and functional, using a grid layout combined with fortification techniques of the era. Unlike many older European cities that evolved organically, this one was built almost entirely anew. The plan for Valletta was conceived by Francesco Laparelli, an Italian military engineer sent by Pope Pius V. Their design applied Renaissance principles of order and symmetry, with straight streets laid out in a precise grid. This structured plan allowed defenders to move troops quickly during an attack, a key consideration given Malta's strategic location between Europe and North Africa. The fortifications of the city are pretty notable. Massive bastions and curtain walls encircle the city, reinforced by deep ditches and outworks. These defenses were designed to withstand artillery bombardment, which shows the latest advancements in military architecture at the time. The position on a narrow peninsula meant that water served as a natural barrier on 3 sides, leaving only a narrow land approach to fortify heavily. And besides the military stuff, the grid layout had practical advantages for civilian life. The straight streets promoted airflow, providing natural cooling during the hot summers, and the city was constructed pretty rapidly with building materials quarried from the peninsula itself and completed to a high standard, including churches, palaces, and lodgings for the knights. Key public spaces like Republic Street and Merchant Street were planned from the outset to serve as commercial hubs, while the central St. John's Cathedral became a religious landmark. Over the century, the design has remained largely unchanged. The compact grid makes it easy to navigate, and the fortified perimeter is still intact. In 1980, it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its historical significance. But from an aerial view, the rectangular grid and encircling walls are strikingly clear. The sharp lines of the bastions and the straight streets stand out against the surrounding harbors. This combination of military engineering and civic planning exemplified how Renaissance ideals could be adapted to strategic needs, producing a city that remains functional and compelling centuries later. Number 6. Carlsruhe. Carlsruhe, located in southwestern Germany, is known for its distinctive radial layout, which resemble the spokes of a fan or a sunburst when viewed from above. Founded in 1715, it was conceived as a new residence city built around the Margrave Palace. The city's name translates to Charles's Repose, reflecting the ruler's desire for a planned urban retreat that combined comfort and order. The centerpiece is the Baroque-style Carlsruhe Palace, from which 32 avenues radiate outward like the spokes of a wheel. This radial pattern divides the city into evenly spaced segments, with the palace gardens and surrounding woods forming a natural backdrop. The design allowed Margrave's residents to dominate the landscape visually, and with all main roads converging on the palace tower, it was a deliberate statement of absolute authority. Unlike many European cities that grew organically over the centuries, the plan was laid out here for Karlsruhe in a single vision. The radial streets are intersected by concentric avenues, creating a triangular and fan-shaped block that remained remarkably consistent today. This layout earned Karlsruhe the nickname the Fan City or Fachterstadt, and it makes it easily identifiable from above. This fan-shaped plan also influenced later city designs. When Pierre L'Enfant was drafting his plan for Washington, D.C., he cited Karlsruhe as an inspiration, adapting its radial principles to the American capital. Over the centuries, it's expanded beyond its original fan layout though, but the historic core has remained largely intact. The palace and its radial avenues continue to serve as the cultural center, housing museums and government offices. From above, it's unmistakable. It's a perfect fan radiating from a central point. This distinctive geometry defines this city's identity, and it demonstrates how Baroque planning principles created urban forms that remained functional and visually striking centuries later. Number 5. Belo Horizonte. Belo Horizonte, the capital of Minas Gerais in southeastern Brazil, is one of the earliest examples of a planned modern city in Latin America, and it's notable for its design. Conceived in the 1890s to replace Ouro Preto as the state capital, Belo Horizonte was envisioned as a symbol of modernization and progress during Brazil's First Republic. The plan combined a rigid grid of orthogonal streets with diagonal avenues, forming a distinctive pattern that remains recognizable from above. The core plan is based on a rectangular grid oriented roughly north-south, overlaid with wide diagonal boulevards that radiate outward from a central square. This creates a series of triangular and irregularly shaped blocks, similar in concept to Washington, D.C., but adapted to the region's hilly terrain. The plan incorporated clear zoning principles with separate areas designed for government buildings, commercial activity, and residential neighborhoods. The civic core centered around Praça de Liberdade, where the state government's administrative buildings were constructed in a uniform architectural style. This core, the diagonal avenues, provided efficient movement and grand vistas, while the grid ensured straightforward navigation. Unlike many cities of the time, the planners placed significant emphasis on sanitation and infrastructure. The design included modern sewers, wider streets to improve ventilation, and public parks distributed throughout the city. But unfortunately, the growth of it quickly outpaced its original plan. That carefully laid out central district became surrounded by unplanned suburbs. The geometric core remains intact and continues to define the city's identity, but today the historic center is known for its landmarks, while the radial avenues still serve as major traffic arteries. From above, you can see the unique combination of grid and diagonal is pretty striking, particularly when contrasted with the irregular urban sprawl surrounding it. Belo Horizonte's core remains one of the most distinctive examples of late 19th century planned urbanism in South America, which bridges European planning ideals with Brazilian culture. Number 4. Letchworth Garden City. Letchworth Garden City is located about 55 kilometers north of London. It's widely recognized as the first example of the Garden City movement. Conceived by social reformer Ebenezer Howard in the late 19th century, that's a great name, it was planned as a response to the overcrowding and poor living conditions in industrial cities. While less rigidly geometric than some fortified towns, Letchworth's design features a clear radial pattern, concentric layout that integrates housing, green belts, and civic spaces. At the heart of the design is the Broadway Gardens, a wide central boulevard that leads directly to the town's civic buildings, including the town hall and library. Surrounding this core are the residential neighborhoods arranged in a semicircular pattern with generous green spaces and tree-lined streets, providing some harmony and a buffer against urban sprawl. Howard's vision for Letchworth was rooted in a balance between city and countryside. He believed that combining the economic and cultural opportunities of the city with the health and beauty of rural life would create better living conditions. To achieve this, the plan incorporated farmland and green belts around the town's perimeter, ensuring that growth remained contained. That approach differed sharply with the unplanned expansion of many industrial towns in Britain at the time. Construction of it began in 1903, funded by a cooperative model in which land was held in trust for the community. Early buildings were designed in the arts and crafts style, emphasizing modesty and craftsmanship rather than grandiosity. Over time, the town attracted progressive thinkers, artists, and reformers, and it became a model for subsequent planned communities both in the UK and abroad. From above, you can see the pattern of radiating roads, the central boulevards, and surrounding green belts. They remain distinct. While later garden cities refined the model, Letchworth set the precedent for combining urban planning with social reform in a way that influenced countless developments in the world. Its legacy lies in proving that thoughtful geometric planning could create healthier, more humane urban environments. Number 3. Mandalay. Mandalay, located in central Myanmar, or Burma, is a rare example of a Southeast Asian city with a strict geometric layout that's endured for more than a century. Established in 1857 by King Mindon as the last royal capital of the Burmese monarchy, Mandalay was designed around Mandalay Palace, which occupies a massive square at the city center. The palace compound alone spans nearly 2 kilometers on each side, enclosed by high walls and a broad moat. The overall plan reflects traditional Burmese cosmology combined with practical military considerations. The palace, at the heart of the city, was aligned with cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, and divided into quadrants reflecting the Buddhist conception of the universe. Streets radiate from the palace and form a grid of straight lines, ensuring that every part of the city is oriented towards the royal compound. The city's grid extends outwards, intersected by major roads that continue to respect the cardinal alignment, and unlike many Southeast Asian capitals that developed organically, the layout here in Mandalay was meticulously planned from its founding. The city's design incorporated religious and cultural elements. Numerous pagodas, monasteries, and shrines were positioned along the grid in deliberate alignments, most famously the Kutadal Pagoda, known for housing the world's largest book, 729 marble slabs inscribed with Buddhist scriptures. These structures reinforced Mandalay's role as a spiritual as well as political center. Although Mandalay suffered damage during World War II, including the near destruction of the original palace, the geometric framework of the city survived. Modern Mandalay has expanded far beyond the original boundaries, but the strict alignment of the historic core remains visible from above in urban maps. Today, that geometric plan is both a historical artifact and a living urban form. The palace compound serves as a major cultural attraction, and the grid facilitates modern traffic patterns. The combination of cosmological symbolism, defensive function, and urban order makes Mandalay unique among the planned cities in the region. Number 2. Neuf-Brisach. Neuf-Brisach, located in the Alsace region of France near the Rhine River, is one of the most remarkable examples of a perfectly geometric fortified town in Europe. Built between 1698 and 1707 under the direction of Sébastien Le Prestre de Vauban, the chief military engineer of King Louis XIV, Neuf-Brisach embodies the culmination of centuries of experimentation in fortress design. Even today, when viewed from above, the precision of the plan remains pretty awesome, making it one of the clearest examples of early modern ideals of symmetry, order, and function applied on a citywide scale. The origins of Neuf-Brisach can be traced to the turbulent geopolitical context of late 17th century Europe. This region of Alsace, straddling the French and German cultural worlds, was a frequent battleground between France and the Holy Roman Empire. In 1697, the Treaty of Ryswick ended the 9 Years' War but forced France to return several territories to the Holy Roman Empire. This loss left a critical gap in France's frontier defenses, and King Louis XIV immediately ordered the construction of a new fortress on the west bank of the river to replace it. The design for it was pretty extraordinary in its ambition. The entire town was laid out as a perfect octagon, with each side measuring about 500 meters. Surrounding this core is a complex of defense networks arranged in concentric layers, bastions, ravelins, tenays, counterguards, and hornworks, all interconnected by covered passages and ditches. This configuration epitomizes what became known as the Star Fort or Tres Italienne style, but taken to its most refined expression. Every angle, parapet, and ditch was calculated to maximize defensive potential. The town was designed around 6,000 people, including both the civilian population and the military garrison. Residences, barracks, workshops, and administrative buildings, they were carefully zoned within the grid. The barracks were placed near the walls for quick deployment, while civilian housing occupied the central areas around the main square. The design allowed for rapid expansion if required. The modular nature of the grid made it relatively simple to add additional blocks without disrupting the overall symmetry. The project involved considerable hydraulic engineering, as the site near the Rhine was prone to flooding. Canals and drainage systems were constructed to manage the water flow, both for defensive purposes, flooding moats during sieges, and to maintain habitability during peacetime. But beyond its military role, it functioned as a living community. Families of soldiers, artisans, merchants, and farmers all found a place within the walls. The orderly grid and uniform architecture gave the town a distinct character that was both austere and harmonious. Over time, the community developed its own traditions and identity, shaped by the unique environment of living inside a geometric fortress. In 2008, Neuf-Brisach, along with 11 other Vauban fortifications across France, were designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites under the collective listing of Fortifications of Vauban. This recognition shows not only the town's historical significance, but also its exceptional state of preservation. The town continues to function as a small community with a population of about 2,000 people, but its heritage status has also made it a site of growing tourism, attracting visitors interested in military history and architecture. In examining Neuf-Brisach today, one can't help but be struck by the contrast between its original purpose and its current reality. What was once a cutting-edge military installation is now a tranquil town, whose greatest battles are with forces of preservation and tourism management. Yet that transformation only underscores the resilience of Vauban's design. By creating a place that was not merely a fortress, but also a functioning community, he ensured that it would endure even after its military relevance faded. Few other towns capture so completely the ambitions of their creators or preserve them so faithfully across centuries. In the star-shaped outline of the place, one can still read the aspirations of Louis XIV's France. Power projected through order, security achieved through precision, and a vision of civilization literally inscribed on the landscape. Number 1. Auroville. Auroville, located near Pondicherry in southern India, is one of the most unusual towns in the world. Founded in 1968, it was conceived as an experimental township dedicated to human unity and international cooperation. The plan was designed by French architect Roger Angier, and it was notable for its radial, galaxy-inspired layout, with a central core surrounded by distinct concentric zones that expand outward like spiraling arms. The concept for the plan originated with Mira Alfassa, known as the Mother, who was the spiritual collaborator of Indian philosopher Sri Aurobindo. She envisioned a place where people of all nations could live together in harmony, beyond politics, religion, and economic divisions. The physical plan of the township reflected this utopian ideal. At its center lies the Maitre Mandir, a spherical meditation hall clad in golden discs surrounded by open gardens known as the Peace Area. From this central point, 4 radial zones, residential, industrial, cultural, and international, spread outwardly in a carefully organized pattern. The residential zone is subdivided into clusters of homes and small communities connected by tree-lined paths rather than any major highways. The industrial zone focuses on sustainable industries and craft production, arranged in a compact grid to minimize the land use. The cultural zone contains education and research institutions, organized around open courtyards and gardens, while the international zone hosts pavilions representing different nations, arranged radially around a central park to symbolize unity. Beyond these zones lies a green belt, a ring of forests and farms that protects the township from urban encroachment and provides resources like food, water management, and renewable energy. Over time, it's grown to a community of around 3,000 residents from more than 50 countries, making it one of the most culturally diverse settlements of its size in the world. From an aerial view, Auroville's design is unmistakable. The golden sphere of the Maitre Mandir dominates the center, surrounded by a circular arrangement of zones that radiate outward. These radial roads and concentric green belts appear like deliberate layers, forming one of the most recognizable planned communities. Today, it continues to function as both a living experiment and a study in urban design. While not all of Angier's original master plan has been fully realized, the key geometric framework remains intact. It is both a physical and symbolic manifestation of the idea that urban spaces can be designed to foster harmony, not just among residents, but between humanity and the natural world.